What's going on, guys? In this video, Kevin and I, we are going to be sharing some of the most common mistakes that we see companies make, specifically in the B2B services industries, right? So just some context on both of us. Kevin has many years of experience leading sales and growth at enterprise companies like Indeed, which had thousands of employees, all the way down to rapid growth startups that have, anywhere from 20 to 100 plus employees, right? And then myself, I've had experience serving hundreds of clients, ranging from freelancers all the way up to billion-dollar companies. And so what we want to do in this video is share some of the most common mistakes that we see and share specific examples as well as solutions so that you as a company owner can allow your marketing and sales to really thrive and avoid these mistakes, all right? So,
sounds good.
How's that sound?
Absolutely wonderful.
All right, cool. So the way that we're going to kind of structure these mistakes is by going through the 4 different pillars of predictable growth, which involve resonance, which involves your offer, your messaging, your positioning. Second pillar is Omnipresence. That's about your ability to create omnichannel content, show up on multiple channels, and move prospects down the funnel. Third is Acquisition, which is all about your sales process, so how you convert conversations into paying clients. And then fourth is Fulfillment, which is all about how you actually fulfill on the promise that your sales team is making, and then retain and cross-sell, upsell, retain clients for many years. All right, so those are the 4 pillars. So we're going to kind of freestyle this a little bit because we're going to just kind of dive into a lot of the war stories from the front lines from the last few years. So why don't we kick it off with
resonance. I mean, starting with resonance,
and maybe share a little bit about what that really means.
Resonance. What that means is, does your offer, the messaging, and the positioning of your solution resonate with your specific target audience? Specific target audience being the avatar for your ideal client. And so what we found it with our own business when launching new products, we find it with other companies all the time, is that if you don't have a specific ideal client avatar, then there's no way you could possibly create an offer and position that offer with the right messaging so that it resonates perfectly with that one subset of ideal clients.
Right.
And so I think it really starts out with picking where you want to be an expert, which industry, which sort of subcategory 2 or 3 you want to be an expert in.
Yeah.
And I think what is so common with companies, and again, we have experienced this ourselves when launching new products, is that unless you decide that you want to become an expert with one specific group through providing the solution that you're offering, you're never going to be able to become an expert. It's only until you master that one subset where then you can open up the supply and reach a larger audience. But you're never going to take off unless you have an expertise in a specific category of helping people.
Yeah, and like I would say at least 80% of the companies we talk to are relying primarily on referrals, right? Because they do great work, but they don't have the marketing and sales systems and communication streamlined so that they can scale beyond referrals, right? So like one of the companies we were talking to, Peter, they have a $10 million per year e-commerce agency, and same instance. They're having a hard time getting traction with business development to a cold audience because they have no clearly defined niche, right? And so they have had, I think, hundreds of clients and gotten amazing results in a wide range of e-commerce companies, but their business development is very generic, and because of that, they're only generating, like 15 leads a month.
Right. So when it comes to expanding into an audience, a network that hasn't heard of you before, you can't just sound like the email that everybody gets flooded with in their inbox every single day. You have to know exactly what the problems are that your specific clients or prospective clients are facing and speak directly to those. And so in the case of this one prospect, they're doing $10+ million a year strictly off of referrals. And some of the biggest challenge that this business development lead had was we can't come up with that secret sauce of the right messaging in an email, the right messaging in LinkedIn content, in Twitter content, whatever the case may be. They've had quite a few calls set up from cold outreach, but no deals were closed. And that's because they can't speak specifically to the problems that their ideal clients are facing.
Right.
So that's number one, is really you got to niche down. You have to become an expert in it so that you can truly understand the problems that each one of these clients feel, and then speak directly to them with cold outreach, with solutions to those exact problems. So that's numero uno, I would say. I guess moving on to omnichannel is, after you have that resonance defined and that niche defined, you want to make sure that you're showing up in front of that specific target audience all the time, wherever they may exist. So if you're in B2B, if you're in a B2B services company market, you want to be on LinkedIn. I mean, that is the professional network for business today. And if you're always showing up with content that is relevant, with solutions to the problems your audience is facing, when it is time for these prospects to buy, they're going to know exactly who to call. And it's those people that have been speaking to their problems, providing solutions, and staying relevant for months.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest mistakes we see companies make is, let's say they launch a biz dev campaign, which is targeting, brand new prospects nobody's ever heard of before, that haven't heard of you before, sorry. And again, only 1 to 5% of that market is going to buy and ready to buy today. So if you don't have some sort of omnipresence built in, then you're literally missing out on 90 to 95% of prospects. And that's a huge hole in your marketing and sales funnel, right? And so that is a very common mistake that we see, which really is, not having omni-channel content, and then also not having content that is going to nurture prospects from the point of the initial contact all the way to understanding what you do, how you do it, how it can help them, and them being ready to sign up and start working with you. So,
yeah, and just kind of to recap, when you're diving into a new market, expanding outside of referrals, like Matt said, 1 to maybe 5% of that audience are already in the market for a solution that you're offering and have the budget allocated. You reach out to them, your message resonated perfectly, they set up the call, and you close them as a new client. The remaining 95% are still ideal prospective clients, but the timing's not right. Budget doesn't free up until next quarter or next year, whatever the case may be. And so instead of having an army of business development reps providing that manual outreach to stay relevant, whether it's through emails, whether it's through messages, whether it's through just, let me tell you about this new product we have, omnichannel content is going to replace that manual, repetitive, nuisance provoking outreach that is a waste of time for everybody. And so I just kind of wanted to mention that, having content available that speaks directly to them is going to convert that remaining majority over the courses of months, quarters, years.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think kind of on the flip side of that, because again, what I mentioned was, and what Kevin mentioned, is how important it is to have that omnichannel content, right? So a big mistake that people are making is not having that content, or only focusing on business development, only focusing on sales development, because again, it's like that prospect can only get so much information from that initial contact to the sales appointment, right? And so typically most prospects, like 80+% of prospects, are going to need more information before they're ready to consider even buying, right? And so if you're only doing biz dev and you're not accounting for that omni-channel content and building that into your funnel, then that's a huge gap, huge mistake that many companies are making.
Right. Yeah, and I think, in order for omni-channel content to be effective, it has to be content that educates your prospects on why your solution is the best and bring value to your prospects as to why this is going to immensely impact their lives for the better. And in order for it to replace that common sales process, people need to engage with hours worth of content prior to buying. But as long as you're staying consistent and you are bringing value, you are educating them, then by the time they're booking that sales appointment, they're 80 to 90% through the sales process. They're negotiating some details, working out some of the fine print, but then they're just about closed. So what that does is allow your business development reps, your sales reps, instead of reaching out to a lead list that they've spoken to or are pitched in the past just to stay relevant, your valuable content is going to do that.
Yeah.
And their calendars in turn are going to be freed up for closing calls to be booked all day, every single day. So that's really the purpose of it.
Right. Yeah, because I think high value content will outperform a sales rep or a sales development rep 9 times out of 10, right? Because again, clients are a little bit skeptical of, overly pushy or, I think in general, just because of a lot of marketers and blah, 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 people's trust levels are a bit down, right? So the way that you build that trust is through content, right? High value content on multiple channels that brings people from top of funnel to middle of funnel all the way down to bottom of funnel so that they're ready to self-enroll into your process, service, etc. Right? So yeah. I think that's a good summary of omnipresence and resonance. So now let's get into acquisition. And from my experience, we've both run lead generation, marketing, sales, services, B2B services in the past, and this is probably number one, right? Because no amount of leads is going to fix a bad sales process, right? And I can't tell you the number of clients that we've had that we're not able to continue more than 2-3 months because we sent them too much business or too many prospects and their sales process was not ready. It was not dialed in. It was not refined. It was very manual. It was not systematic. And so that is a huge issue and mistake that we see a lot of companies make.
Right, and when you're talking about expanding outside of referrals, the sales process is different. So if your sales team has only ever known closing new business based on a referral that came inbound, that's, just much easier,
right, and
much different. I don't know if I want to say easy. It is easier.
Well, it is, because and that's why, we'll talk to some clients and prospects who are like, oh yeah, my close rate is 60%, 50%, 70%. And yes, that may be true, but the reason is because these are coming from
people
inbound referrals.
Yeah.
Right? And so those are always going to close at a higher clip, but that's not an accurate metric when you're going out to cold traffic or to less warm traffic. And so that's why the sales process has to be refined and optimized for both inbound as well as outbound, right? So maybe you can talk us through the outbound sales process versus the inbound sales process.
Sure. So similar to inbound, when it comes to outbound, you do have to qualify. I mean, even inbound prospects, you should qualify. And I think it comes down to not just do they have the money to invest in our solution, but do they meet the standards of the ideal client avatar that our team is investing their time to partner with and work with. And I think, just by having a thorough understanding of, okay, I'm going to get on a discovery call and I need to understand everything that this client is facing when it comes to bottlenecks, challenges, hurdles, opportunity costs, time costs, monetary costs, that my solution can potentially alleviate for them. And oftentimes when it's an inbound, all of that discovery goes by the wayside because you don't need to sell them. They came in inbound because they were interested in the service solution. So there's much more actual selling, quote unquote, that takes place when you're on an outbound sales call that primarily is in the form of a discovery process. Because selling really isn't just telling people why your solution is great, why your features are better than the competitors. It's a thorough consultative process of understanding exactly what this prospect is going through, with the value that they're missing out on by not investing and implementing the solution that you're offering. And so the conversation is just much different, and it's not rocket science by any means. It just needs to be taught to a salesperson if they haven't had any introduction to it previously. So that's really the main difference. But it's having a checklist of what are the questions that I need to ask that'll uncover the opportunities for me to position our value so that it's a no-brainer.
Right. Yeah. So just to kind of summarize, there's inbound prospects, which is a lot more passive because, again, these people are coming into your ecosystem and they should always be going through some sort of pre-qualification form or survey or something that just make sure that, okay, are they worthy of occupying an hour of my sales rep's times or a half hour of their time, right? So it's critical that you have those qualifiers built in. How we do it is we do it through, we have an application form, and then we have a Calendly that allows prospects to book. And only if they're qualified will they be able to book on that calendar, right? So that's the inbound process. Then the outbound process is, again, when you're reaching out to somebody that doesn't know you, and so instead of giving them a form, you are manually taking them through on a call those qualifying questions and just evaluating if there is a fit. And then once there is a fit, then you take them to the final consultation where you're actually going to be making an offer and then hopefully closing that new client, right? And so that's the process. And then just one other thing I want to add here is another huge issue that we see with sales is that clients do not qualify prospects, right? And they literally just say yes to anybody that will pay them. And the problem with that is when you do not have strict qualifiers, you do not have a strict niche, then your sales process is different, your delivery process is different, your onboarding process is different, your retention process is different. And so every new client is changing your process in a multitude of ways, right? And so when you do not have a set avatar, a set niche, a set offer, and set qualifiers, you are susceptible to working with people that are not an ideal fit. And we've been through that a lot this year, where we went from having, I think it was 6 or 7 clients, and then we changed our model, we refined our niche, we refined our offer, we refined our sales process, and we went from 7 or 8 clients down to 2 to 3 clients, and we were making far more money with 2 to 3 clients, right? And so that's something that is really, really critical because, again, right, you being the expert provider, the solution provider, you need to be able to disqualify your prospects, right?
Your clients are going to be the number one thing that utilize you and your company's time. That's just case in point. And so what Matt is saying is, by properly qualifying and only working with those clients that live up to the standards you set,
right,
you're going to be saving a bunch of time by working with exponentially less clients, but making exponentially more money, more revenue, because you set those standards and you've upheld them,
right,
which is the case with us and something that we implement with all of our clients in the first 2 weeks of working together.
Right, and this is a big part of how we help companies increase revenue with less clients and increase that LTV. Because again, the way that you do that is by having a tight offer, tight niche, tight sales process, tight fulfillment. And when you stay within that niche and stay within that qualified prospect zone, you're not redoing the wheel every single time you get a new client, right?
Exactly. That's not what you want to do. You want to shoot it down as if it's an assembly line. People don't have to think twice. And when you do that as well, leading us into our last thing is by having your process when it comes to fulfillment the same and standardized, that's when you can actually implement automations to that process so that you can remove the amount of labor and money invested internally to actually deliver for that client, while speeding the process up and allowing your capacity to increase by taking on more clients because it takes less time to fulfill.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the last thing here is fulfillment, which we've kind of touched on with the previous points, because again, everything's connected. All these pillars are very, very much intertwined. But when it comes to fulfillment, 95% of agencies and service providers would be completely unable to add
Should we just cut it?
well, let's just finish this last part.
A lot of work went into that.
Well, don't move it. We got a little Halloween special here at WeWork.
For the record, everybody, I don't know if this is making it into the video, but we're at WeWork and it's the Friday before Halloween.
So the last part here is fulfillment. Again, the most common mistakes we see here also go back to the offer, go back to the niche, because again, if you're accepting anybody that will pay you, which is 90% of companies, then every new client's going to be different, right? So if your process changes every time you get a new client, then that business is impossible to scale, it's impossible to automate, it's impossible to streamline, because again, things are changing every single week, right? And so the biggest mistake is, again, not defining a specific avatar, a specific niche with a specific offer, and having a specific fulfillment process to solve that specific problem for that client. So that's fulfillment, and
that's predictable growth.
Yeah, that's a kind of a high level overview of a lot of the mistakes, a lot of the issues that we see companies make, and I hope that this has provided some insight and maybe helped alleviate, brought some awareness to where you can optimize your process, optimize your strategy, so that you can unlock predictable, peaceful growth.
That's right. Thanks so much for checking us out here. We'd love to chat with you if you found this interesting. If you want to speak further, head to our website, book a call with myself, Kevin. Happy to get on the phone and see what's going on. Peace out.
Not really. You don't want to see what's going on.